All right.
Okay, so looks like we're ready. So, Aaron, go ahead, man.
All right. So the game between Oregon and Washington, as I watched it last night, cleaning my house, doing my nightly Friday cleaning because I want a Saturday to chill. I saw a classic. Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr. You talk about shootout after shootout. Two Heisman worthy quarterbacks that could possibly be the future once they go into the draft. What made me sad was that Bo Nix, who had a successful, awesome season, saw the ending of the game on the bench.
Mhm.
As Washington ran the clock out, got the first, Nix didn't even get a chance to get on the field to prove his Heisman worthiness. On this call today, on this topic on the game between Washington and Oregon, number 5 Oregon, number 3 Washington, which was a classic of a championship Pac-12 game. We have on the line Mike Wilson,
Yes, sir.
and we have on the line Jaron Carter, also known we call him as Carter, who is an Oregon fan. Was it
I'm here.
heartbreak? Yes. It was the most biggest heartbreak knowing that the game ended on a 12-yard run by the running back of Washington. Remember, Michael Penix was one of the worst, was on the worst team in Indiana where he had no future. Put up numbers, but his team went nowhere. Did the transfer, 5 year senior, and now he's up for the Heisman. This is funny how things go that way. Now, as we go on this line today, not to keep anybody up, keep anybody longer on this line. Mr. Carter, you being an Oregon fan, I'm sure you saw the game last night as you complimented in tears, anger, frustration, however, humbleness. Please let us get your take on this game.
Yeah, I felt everything. Like the from the beginning to the end, I probably went through the 5 stages of grief. and it was hard to watch knowing that Bo Nix wasn't going to get another chance to get back on the field because as anything, that's all you can hope for is your team go out swinging, not go out, you know what I mean, watching the other team in what do they call it, game winning position or game winning formation. But I just feel like Oregon came out and got away from what we do in Oregon football, and they got behind early. But as we know in this game, it takes one play, and it's never over because in the game in the season, Oregon got down early, and we was down early, but the game was never out of reach. But it just felt different with this one because where Washington won at was the trenches, and they haven't been the physical team in really any of their matchups all season. Now, most electrifying team with the best talent, yeah, that's Washington. But most physical, winning at the line of scrimmage, that hasn't been them. So to see them come out and do that was tough to watch.
Absolutely. As I saw the game, I saw at a point in time this close as I saw a offensive lineman recover the ball during the play, and I'm sure you saw this. I remember it was offensive lineman or even tight end. Ball fumbled, he picked it up, ran it back for a touchdown, and had to question it. And he said, "Are you entertained?"
Yes.
And right there, I said, Oregon got them scared on their heels. This
Yes.
could be their moment.
Yes.
And it should have been their moment.
Yes.
I can't really go ahead. Go ahead.
I felt that too. And the time, because Oregon, if I can demonstrate, we're the type of team, as one once said, who we don't drain you slowly. Like, we don't squeeze the sponge out of you. We don't like drain the life out of you. If we get an edge or leverage, we just start throwing haymakers and the floodgates open. You know what I mean? And we had that edge when we was up 24-20 and Michael Penix threw that interception. That was the moment where I was like, this is it. This is it. My kids was probably upstairs in bed, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs. It's it's over. It's over. It's over. And Bo Nix turned around and threw one right back, and I was just like, ah.
Do you think that's what? Do you think that's what? Where you guys like lost some momentum at that? What you just said when he threw it?
No, because even after that, we still had them. Like, granted, they made plays. The thing with Washington, the plays that they make are heart snatchers. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's you get them back against the wall, and you get them in these tough situations, and then they hit you downfield for 21 yards from a 3rd and 9. You know what I mean? It's just it snatches the life from defense. It's like, we had them.
Do you think?
You
Do
know
you
what I
think?
mean?
Do you think that happens, or that happened with Oregon because they were looking at? I think they were looking at Rome too much. Like they were paying a lot of attention to Rome, because I seen some receivers. I checked the box score, and they had this one guy. I'd never really seen them before. Like, they had a couple guys who caused some.
I could tell you right now, Mike. Right now,
Oh,
I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry, but I'll pull you up the stats here. So Washington receiving, right? And this is insane to me. Jalen McMillan from Washington, 9 receptions, 131 yards. Rome Ozunze, 8 receptions, 102 yards. Jalen Polk, 57 yards. Devin Cole. But where are the safeties and corners at that point where they're just getting these receptions like candy? You see what I'm saying? Like,
see that was the thing though. Yesterday, Washington, you can look at the stat sheet, and and yeah, they had a couple receivers over 100 yards, but they didn't beat us how they would normally win. They didn't get them down the fields, and that's why I think where they beat us schematically with Oregon, it was a chess move, where Oregon came out and said, oh, we're not going to let them take the top off. They're not going to go downfield on us. And Washington dinked and dunked, and they played our game and just.
That's what I'm saying, because you look at all
down
these
the field.
weapons on Washington.
I'm gonna just hit you with these little ones and just go. And I'm gonna take my chances when I get them.
Can I bring you up a stat here? Dylan Johnson, I have never 28 carries for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. It seems that when I'm looking at Washington, right, because Michael Penix only scored 1 TD. He had 319 yards, 27-39. When I look at Penix, it seems like Indiana stats. Yeah, he'll get a couple of touchdowns or whatever. I don't think Penix had the weapons in Indiana, or he may have had some couple weapons. They got a running game in Washington where I looked at the last play with Dylan Johnson, and he ran it for that clinching first down in the 4th quarter. It's
he
like
broke a tackle in the backfield.
That's what I'm saying. How do you not either wrap them up or not, like, try to get more linebackers across them? Because that's the thing. Missed tackles kill everything. As a matter of fact, hold on. Let me see something. Matter of fact, when you look at the defense, Steve Stevens from Oregon had tackles, 12 tackles, 6 tackles by himself. Looks like Jeffrey Baza, 11 TOTs, 6 solo tackles, and it's like, man, Kyrie Jackson made that interception. And I think, like, when I look at the defense of Oregon and you look at the defense of Washington, this was a shootout where you, regardless of how good your defense was, you're not going to stop 2 elite Heisman quarterbacks. You just can't.
No, no.
No, you just
That's-
can't. And the thing is that Penix didn't have a great passing game. I mean, he had a great passing game, but he didn't have to score many touchdowns.
No, because that's why I said, it was like it was a chess match between coaches. Dan Lanning decided to come out and say, I'm not going to put myself in those situations again, but if I find myself in them, I'm going to convert on 4th down, which he did.
Mm, he did.
Washington's head
I
coach
saw most of it.
came
I saw
out,
most of it.
and yeah, and Washington's head coach came out and said, "Oh, they think we can't be physical. Oh, they think they're going to push us around," and he challenged his guys. You know, Dylan Johnson has been the healthiest he's ever been last night.
Mm.
He was hobbled in the Oregon State game. He was even limping after 2 quarters last night. And sorry to even go everywhere. Speaking of him limping, he limped back to the huddle on a 3rd and 7 and then got 13. On a 3rd and 7 and got 13. It was on the drive where they went up to go up 17-3. And it was just, it was different. That game was won in the trenches. Everybody thought Oregon was going to come in and be the physical team, and it just didn't happen that way. We came in, we got pushed around. Now, was that because schematically we wasn't in the right places? You can say Jordan Burch going down on a first drive hurt us, but irregardless, that game was won in the trenches because Bo Nix was Bo Nix. Mike Penix was Mike Penix. The difference was Bucky Irvin wasn't Bucky Irvin. Dylan Johnson was I don't know.
That's
He was
unheard of, man.
Travis Dye. He was a workhorse yesterday.
But
He
that's what I'm
almost got the
saying.
ball 30 times.
That's unheard of. 28 carries, 152 yards. Well, he averaged 5.4 yards a carry. And
Yes.
the longest he had was 18. And here's the thing. Like, I think right now, I think at that point in the game, he was on a mission to say that, if nobody's going to win this game, if Phoenix is not going to have, those legendary performances that he usually has, because you look at Michael Penix, I mean, he's averaged 4,218 yards in the season, 33 touchdowns, on top of that, 9 picks, total. I think he had a comparison CMP of 69.2, rating of 141.3. Lord have mercy. That's insane. That in the championship game, he was just chilling. Okay, I got my touchdown. I got my pick. Okay, now Dylan Johnson, go to work, because you look at it this way, averaging like, because think about this, 2023 stats, he's carried the ball 201 times for 1,013 yards, bruh. You couldn't find another defensive scheme against him. You couldn't find anything else. You didn't read up on him,
right?
Like, that's just another.
So
Go ahead, Mike.
basically, it sounds like it was so if I'm wrong, Oregon got out coached, or it was a coaching situation where this came down to, like, you guys, Oregon got out coached. That's pretty much what happened.
That's what I'm saying.
Personally, I feel like Oregon got out coached because Washington came in there with the mindset as they was gonna be somebody that the world thought they couldn't be. And Oregon came in there with the mindset that we're going to play their game, which is not Oregon football. At the end of the first half, we had 8 runs. 8 runs. That's not Oregon. That's not Oregon football. That's not winning football. That's not what got us to the Pac-12 championship. Now, the adjustments was made, but I feel like it was a little too late.
Right. Because it, what's a crazy thing to me when I watched that game, to me, that game was pretty much out of like all of the teams that have something to lose. I thought that like that rematch game was gonna be the best game out of like all of the top teams, like FSU versus Louisville. Even though Alabama was trying to fight their way in against Georgia, I thought that the Oregon game was like, was that game the best one or whatever. And honestly, it would, to me, it was. And the thing about it was that even though it was a rematch, it was literally like both games mirrored each other from the regular season to the championship game. Both games was like, it was very similar. They started off, like we talked about, Washington just kind of jumped on them. And then it looked like the regular season game, it looked like Oregon was gonna pull away going into the fourth quarter. And it was just like, Washington had made a few plays to kind of like block Oregon, but it just looked like, hey, Oregon's gonna win this game. And that's the same way how the championship game was. It was like, I kid you not, it looked like Oregon took the momentum in the fourth coming down. And, you could see the Heisman hopeful guy from Washington, the quarterback, he was kind of looking nervous. So he was trying not to, sweat.
Yeah.
Like he was getting nervous. Now, the championship game was in Vegas, so I kind of thought that, it's a neutral place, but I kind of figured, I think that guy Rome is from Las Vegas, so that's his hometown. Yeah, that's his
They had a
hometown.
few
So
people.
yeah,
But
so
I will say this, Mike, I don't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to bring up a key stat here. So looking at Bo Nix, 21 to 34, 239, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. He was the leading rusher with 69 yards.
he was dogging, man. I'm not gonna lie, he was.
And that's what I'm saying, like, which is great. But then you look at Jordan James, he had a 1 touchdown for rushing 35, and Bucky Irvin had 29 carries. I'm thinking to myself, like, with that lack of running game always makes a difference, Carter. And I don't know about you, but lack of running game, it's like Washington knew each play was going to be a pass, especially when you're going 21 to 34.
Yes.
I mean, 34 pass attempts, right? They knew what he was doing. So what did they do? They made adjustments in the second, right? Even though with those adjustments, they still couldn't stop Bo Nix. You see what I'm saying? So I'm thinking to myself, couldn't they switch it up where it could have been a play action pass? You can think about that. Trayshawn Holden had actually had 1 for 63 yards. You had Tez Johnson for 5 receptions for 68 yards. You look at that point, you have weapons around Oregon, right? They're gonna change up their defensive scheme. You know what I mean? And Travis Dye, I remember from years ago when he killed Ohio State, mercifully, like a running game is always important so you won't be one-dimensional. And do you think, in your opinion, that Oregon was too one-dimensional in this case?
Yes, I think Oregon came into this game and they said, we're going to show the world why Bo Nix is a Heisman quarterback. And you see on their first 6 plays, not first 6 plays, their first 3 plays was straight passes. First 4 plays was passes. 5 out of their first 6 was passes. 2 3 and outs real quick. They came in this game, and I think Dan Lanning had a mindset. I'm going to show you why Bo Nix is better than Michael Penix. And we got down early because of it. Now, when they
Yep.
just went back to say, okay, all right, we're going to show why we're Oregon football. We're going to do what we do, get back to doing what we do, and do it good. You see what happened. The momentum started changing. We started creeping back in. And I don't know if you know this, but our offense fuels our defense. Our defense, yeah, they're good. They're ranked 6th nationally in rushing. Didn't look like it last night. Got 140 put on their heads with 30 carries from Dylan. But our offense fuels our defense. We'll go down and get a quick score, and our defense comes out, and they're like, yeah, got to get it back to Bo Nix. Like, that's how it happens. So when our offense sputters, our defense is out there on the island like, I guess we got to make a stop. And they're not playing Oregon football.
Yeah, because you look at it, I'm looking at what Steve Stevens had TOT 12 tackles, 6 on his own. Looks like I guess a solo. Jeffrey Baza, and that's the thing. Like you had the tackles in there, and so six solo tackles. But then, like Tisheem Johnson, 1 tackle for loss.
Yeah,
Nico Reed, tackle for loss. That defense was not. I'm not saying it wasn't there. It was there, but how much pressure was trying to show up on Penix where he didn't have to run? Let me see how many rushing yards Penix had, if any. So you look at his rushing yards. Oh, he had -4.
yeah.
So there was no
We
reason for him to even get. There was no reason for Oregon not to rush the quarterback. I'm like, he's not the best
yeah,
runner.
we got to him and got to him often. It was just we couldn't get those covered sacks, and those was the plays that was heartbreakers when Basa's literally right in his face, and he's a yard away from making an 8-yard sack, and Penix get the pass off, and you're like, well, I don't care, until you look, and it's a swing around because it just went 22 yards to Polk, or 14 yards across the middle to McMillan, and he runs it for another 6. Or it's a long pass to Doomsday, who they didn't snuck and got him on a linebacker, and he didn't got a 40-yard bomb.
Because I'm looking at this. This is unreal. McMillan, 131, 9 receptions, 131 yards. That's unreal because that means he averaged 14.6 yards a reception in Rome, like Michael's talking about. And that's the thing. When you look at Rome and like 81 receptions, 1,428 yards, 13 touchdowns, that should have been the main target. At the same time, if that's the main target, that leaves Polk, that leaves McMillan, and that leaves man, it leaves so many weapons where they can just carve you up. Hence, if you try to get
Yes.
to the receivers, they make a change, a game plan where they're going to have Dylan Johnson carve 28 carries for 152 dang on yards, which I
I
think,
feel
like, man,
I feel like that was the difference maker. I feel like yesterday, although at first the score didn't show it, but I feel like there was a there was a point of the game where both teams was like this.
mm,
And the difference maker was Dylan Johnson upped his game and was this, and Bucky Irving and Jordan James stayed here.
yeah. And Mike, I want to get back to you though, because about where you always have to have that dog in you during big moments, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to bring you back to the again Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. Even though that loss to Michigan, where he didn't have the perfect quarterback to be receiving yards or whatever, right? So you think about it, what's so important about having that dog mentality? And do you think, in this case, compared to Dylan Johnson and Marvin Harrison Jr., the comparison of the dog mentality that they had during their crucial games?
You took them Oregon or Washington or both.
Well, I'm talking about Washington. Dylan Johnson had 28 for 152 yards. But then you look at the loss to Michigan from the Buckeyes, me being an Ohio State fan.
I mean,
I never doubt.
in my best way of answering your question, I feel that if we summarize the game, if we're talking about the game championship game, both
Because
teams.
because I was gonna say 5 receptions for 118 yards from Marvin Harrison, 1 touchdown with a mediocre quarterback, but he still had
I
that
mean,
dog mentality.
I feel like they both honestly, when I look at intensity, both teams are equal intensity. I feel like they both came out, you know what I mean, like they wanted to win. You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
I just feel like it came to X's and O's, man. I feel like it was a situation where um I looked at Rome because I got turned on to Rome, the receiver guy against the last Oregon game, during the regular season. But this game, I kind of looked at it like, because he's top 5 NFL prospect, supposedly, he was like a decoy. So Washington had used him a lot as a decoy, and it just looked like Oregon was overplaying him. I mean, you gotta send a double team and everything for him, I guess, but it just looked like the game plan to me was, don't let Rome burn us or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he was a decoy a lot of the times. He still got 100 yards, but he didn't score a
Yeah.
TD, but he
But
still
my 2 receivers had over 100 yards reception.
he served his purpose. He served his purpose, and at the end of the day, the good thing about the whole situation is that I believe both teams are coming to the Big Ten, so I don't think this is going to be the last of this type of conversation between
Mhm.
Washington and Oregon. Yeah, I think this is going to
We're
be
gonna be playing next year for the Big Ten title.
Mhm.
well, yeah, I don't know
Dude,
about
you
that, but I
imagine
definitely,
Washington versus Michigan in the Big Ten championship game?
but
Can you
I
imagine?
definitely, I definitely feel like that was a classic championship game, and even a regular season game. I feel like that was a classic game. I have a question for you, Mr. Carter, and also Aaron, and we got 5 minutes left in this recording. Do you think that he won the Heisman, or do you think that this game puts the icing on the cake for him to make a good case that he deserves a Heisman?
Now,
Talking about Washington, Mike, whatever.
Can I be honest? I feel like if the Heisman is for what it stands for, it goes to the best player in college football. It's Jaden Daniels. I've I've gotten away from the Heisman. Now, this year, of course, I was different because I feel like Bo Nix should have won it last year. He had the better stats than anybody last year, but a late loss and an injury kind of knocked him out of the race. So this year I was all in on Bo winning the Heisman to make up for last year. But again, a late loss is going to knock him out of it. He'll get invited to New York, but I don't think he'll win it. I think it's should go to Jaden Daniels, but the way they do it, I believe they'll give it to Michael Penix. If not, I'll be very surprised. But I don't think he did anything to add to his case. I think his
Okay.
case was already made. He's, you know what I mean. He did that early in the season. You know what I mean.
Okay.
He's had 8 games to where he's thrown for over 300 yards and multiple TDs. But then you could say the same thing for Bo. Bo Nix is on a streak to where he's had at least 2 touchdown passes in every game dating back to last year. So it's just like you can make a case for any one of those three, but I don't think none of them. I don't think Bo Nix did anything to add to it
Right.
or take away from it, and I feel the same way about Penix. I don't think nothing he did added to it besides get the win. You know what I
Right.
mean? But as far as play on the field, I don't think it added to it, but I don't think it took away from it either.
Okay. That's a good answer. What about you, Aaron?
Michael Penix, when you come from mediocrity and losing seasons, he has a chip on his shoulder.
That's
The
true.
transfer portal is a very important aspect of where your career is going to progress in the future. You look at Quinn Ewers, you look at Joe Burrow, you look at
Bo Nix.
Bo Nix, you look at not even quarterbacks, but just players in general. Transfer portals become so significant where you lose all these good players, right? Because you didn't give them a chance to shine when they were trying to develop. You know, there's a difference between development and stagnant.
Yeah.
And Michael Penix did not want to be stagnant. Indiana didn't realize his talent because they didn't surround him with the pieces that he needed to be successful. Mind you, Ohio State killed him every year. However, Michael Penix showed with the less type of talent he had in Indiana, he was still able to do the best he can. After a point, he was just tired of it. He had to show to himself and to others that he was that dog. And I'm sure, and for sure, that right now in Michael Penix. Heisman, I don't think that's impossible right now.
You said that is possible or impossible?
I don't think that's impossible.
Okay. I mean, I think the Heisman, it's kind of like in basketball when they talk about who should be the MVP. I think, and long story short, I think the Heisman has to do like personal stats as well as the team, but more so the team accomplishment. I think that's the biggest thing they
Yes.
weigh in, like what the team did overall. But yeah, I mean, that was a good game last night. And like I said before, it was classic, whatever. And my lasting memory for that game was when the Oregon quarterback had the towel over his head or whatever at the end. That was the memory that's gonna be in my mind for the rest of my life, whatever. But
It's a sad memory.
Right.
Sad memory.
I went to sleep like this. This is how I slept last night.
That's sad. I don't ever want to see that
I
last
kid you
memory.
not.
Yeah.
My wife can vouch for me. I slept with a hoodie on like this last night.
I couldn't even sleep. I
Girl,
didn't go to bed till 3 a.m. And my wife woke up at like 5 to go to work. So
that hurt.